At L&M Fine Jewelry, we hand select our diamonds to give you the very best prices possible. Monty knows a great deal when he finds one. Find your great deal at L&M Fine Jewelry.
Your diamond destination.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Sammy the Kim here, and I'm back with another one. I appreciate you guys so much for tapping in to my next Tuesday video. I know I wasn't here last week. I had a wedding and I didn't do a Tuesday video. We didn't get back till Monday, and I usually shoot on Sundays. And, you know, I was thinking about the logistics. I wanted to break down that Weber State game, but I also had the new show Under the Helmet on Monday as well. So I had a lot going on. I was trying to figure out all the logistics of that show and how that was going to work out. I kind of been, planning ahead before I had left, but it's just kind of that wedding being in the middle of all of that stuff starting up kind of just throw a wrench in everything. So I'm back. I will have a poll today towards the end of the video. I will be reacting to some of the top games in the Big Sky Conference. A lot happened in the Big Sky this weekend. We are going to get straight into it. Make sure you guys hit the like. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. Make sure you guys leave me a comment down below. Also, I want to point out you guys can catch the audio from any of these Tuesday videos. Will be on the Big Sky Breakdown. The Big Sky Breakdown, but they'll be on Skyline Sports. So the video of all my breakdowns are on Skyline Sports. The audio is on Skyline Sports. If you guys haven't heard about Under the Helmet, that is a new show, Under the Helmet. I'm sitting down with the Grizz Montana running backs each week. We'll be interviewing a different player in that Grizz running back room. Talking about some really good topics, talking about their careers, talking about what they've went through. That'll be 5 to 7 at the press box. Get there at 5, chat it up with the players. They'll have pictures for you guys to autograph. You guys can chat with them, get some autographs from them. We will start interviewing around 5:30. We're really still trying to figure out all the logistics of, just like what the flow of the show will be. But the main premise is the Grizz running backs, having a good time with those guys. They work hard, and, learn more about them. So make sure you guys leave me a like. Make sure you guys leave me a subscribe. You guys can catch anything I do audio-wise. You guys can catch it on Skyline Sports. The video obviously is always going to go on my channel, but some of the videos I think from Under the Helmet might also be on Skyline Sports channel as well. But, doing a lot of good things these days. Make sure you guys check it all out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hit the like button if you haven't. Leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think, and we will get straight into it. Okay, first things first. Montana defeated Northern Arizona 31-20. They moved to 5-2. Northern Arizona moves to 3-4. It was a really great matchup between two really, really good teams in the Big Sky Conference. Obviously, 3-4 for NAU doesn't look great. Two of their losses came to Incarnate Word. They lost 38-14. That looks pretty bad. And then they lost to Arizona 22-10. They have a pretty decent defense. It doesn't really look like that with some of the scores they've given up. 38 to Incarnate Word is one that I really point to. Outside of that total, they haven't really given up a ton of points. But, I don't think this team is a super bad team. I think they're pretty good defensively. They've got some good pieces. They just don't have a ton of offense. Even with their starting quarterback, Pennington, who did not play against Montana this last week, they struggle offensively. They don't have a ton of good players that are really helping them out right now offensively, and it's a struggle for them. It's genuinely a struggle for them, and, hopefully they can get things going. Hopefully they can get some things figured out. Hopefully they can get some help from some of their receivers. They have a good receiver, number 11, who had a really good game yesterday. They have a good tight end, Brzee White. Their run game seems to be a little bit of a struggle. They rushed for 175 yesterday. 67 of that was PJ London. So from that standpoint, you don't really want your starting quarterback, really your third string, but the quarterback who started on Saturday, you don't really want him to be your leading rusher. So I know that's really a problem that they need to get figured out. But from the Montana standpoint of things, they held NAU to 20 points. Granted, it was a third-string quarterback, but they tackled a little better yesterday. They didn't get a ton of pressure on the quarterback. They got enough pressure on the quarterback, but in coverage, they were much better in coverage. Now, not that NAU's downfield passing game was elite to any stretch, but They were good enough. They were good enough to get the dub. Obviously, their offense was able to put up points. They scored 21 unanswered in the second half. Their offense really struggled in the first half, and they really hurt themselves in the first half. They got a holding penalty that hurt them. there were a few penalties. I can't exactly remember. You guys can go watch that breakdown to see me cover really what the penalties were that hurt them. But Montana really struggled in the first half. In the second half, they had 6 drives, 5 of them outside of the they had a one drive where they took knees in the second half. The 5 drives that they really were looking to score, they scored on 4 of them, touchdowns on 4 of them. So they weren't getting field goals. They got 1 field goal in this game, but outside of that, it was a 28-7 ball game in the second half. That 7 being the one long 88-yard reception to the receiver of NAU. That receiver being Colby Katzis. It was a quick pitch pass to the receiver. He took it to the house. Montana got a little out leveraged on that play, overran it a little bit, but it was a really good game, really back and forth in the first half. In the second half, Montana really took over, and, they got the dub. I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of people were saying it would be panic mode for Montana had they lost this game. They would have dropped to 4-3 and 1-2 in conference had they dropped this game. They were able to get the victory, and that's what you want. That's what you want from this Montana team. They needed the victory. They needed to come out victorious in this game, and that is all that matters right now. I know a lot of people are going to have a lot of talking points about, this NAU defense. This NAU offense wasn't very strong. They didn't have a lot of good pieces, but I don't think that Weber State offense was very strong prior to playing Montana last week, and Montana's defense just looked abysmal. Just looked very, very bad. Just looked very inconsistent in coverage. Just looked like they weren't tackling at all, and they gave up a ton of points, man. 55 points is bad. I think that's the most on a Bobby Haupt coach team in a long time. I can't remember when they said that was the last time a Bobby Haupt team had given up that, but it hasn't been a long time. It's been a while since they've given up that. And to see them give up 55 points last week is very, very concerning. So for them to only give up 20, and really this defense only gave up 13 this week, 2 field goals and a touchdown on the long 88-yard reception. The offense to start the game gave up a sack fumble that ended up being a touchdown in NAU's favor. So that's not a touchdown that the defense gave up. This defense really gave up 13 points, but 20 points is what shows on the scoreboard. So that's going to count statistically, that's going to count against Montana's defense. But if you're anybody who watched the game, you know that their defense really played a pretty good game. NAU's defense has been very successful in getting them points. They had a touchdown against Sac State, on a sack fumble from Alex McLaughlin. They had a touchdown against they had an interception that went back to the 1-yard line that they ran in the next play. So this defense has been playing at a high level. They've been able to create turnovers. That's something that is concerning from this Montana standpoint. I don't know if it's that they're not. I don't know. I don't know what creates fumbles. I don't know if it's effort. I don't know if it's aggression. Obviously, players getting interceptions helps. Montana has not gotten a ton of interceptions. They have not gotten a ton of fumbles. They obviously finished the game off today with a fumble, or the game off on Saturday with a fumble. But, they're just not creating a ton of turnovers. And in years past with this Montana defense, that's something that's really helped them. They get pressure on the quarterback and they create turnovers. And then obviously their offense does enough. But it's really been, Montana has really leaned on the defensive end of things in the past. And this year it's been completely different. They've had to lean on their offense. Their offenses had to outscore teams. They had to outscore Eastern Washington. They had to attempt to outscore Weber State, which they were unable to do. They had to outscore Western Carolina, which they were able to do. But, it's been a struggle for Montana. It's been a struggle for Montana offensively. They've really been defensively. And I think they need to start create some turnovers. I don't know how you start to create turnovers if that's not what you're currently doing. If that's not something that you do, I don't know how you just change things up and then, we're going to start creating turnovers. And then you just snap your finger and automatically start creating turnovers. That's not how football works. And that's not how it's going to work for this Montana team this year. But, they'll have to figure it out. They definitely need to get it figured out. It's definitely a serious problem for them right now. They need help right now defensively. And they got it figured out on Saturday. They got the dub. They're going to run into some stiff competition. UC Davis's quarterback just threw for 400 and something yards. I think it was like 480. I don't want to be wrong. He threw for a ton of yardage. UC Davis's quarterback, 4 touchdowns. He's probably going to be Offensive Player of the Week in the Big Sky this week. He had an amazing game. Lan Larison is a problem. That UC Davis team is definitely going to be a problem for Montana. They play them on national television this year at home, but that's going to be a big, big test for this Montana team. A team that is good defensively, a team that is good offensively. They beat Idaho earlier in the year, a couple of weeks ago actually, and That's going to be the first test for Montana following this Weber State game, following the North Dakota test. Obviously, NAU was ranked, so that's going to count as ranked victory for Montana. Western Carolina was ranked. That's going to count as a ranked victory. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Western Carolina, when Montana beat them, was ranked 24. NAU was ranked 24, and Montana just beat them. So they beat two teams who were ranked barely in the top 25, but they are ranked victories. Those two losses, that Weber State loss is really going to hurt Montana, particularly because Weber State is not a good team. Weber State looked like one of the best offenses in the Big Sky against Montana, and then they go and drop a game against Northern Colorado. Northern Colorado has not won a game, I think they said since like November 14th of 2022. So they went 0 in 2023, and they hadn't won a game this year until they beat Weber State. That is not good for Montana. Not good. Good for the Big Sky that Northern Colorado is not just rolling over and letting everybody beat them. Good for them to stand up and get a victory. But in terms of Montana, their aspirations of playing deep in the playoffs, their aspirations of playing home playoff games, having home field advantage in the playoffs, that seems to be slipping away a little bit, particularly with that loss to Weber State. But especially if Weber State ends up being a really bad team, the committee's gonna look at that and say, man, like, they dropped this game that they probably shouldn't have dropped to Weber State. And, we'll see how Weber State ends up being. I don't think they're going to be one of the better teams in the Big Sky Conference. I don't have them ranked high in my poll right now. Obviously, they beat Montana, but, any given Saturday, anything can happen. Montana was able to come away with the victory against NAU. That is all it's about for Montana right now. You play the teams and you play the games on your schedule, and you hope to get a victory in every game on your schedule. And they did that this week. They got a victory against Northern Arizona. Some of the highlights from this game, Keelan White and Logan Fife's connection seems to be really good. Keelan White only had 53 receiving yards on 5 receptions. Sawyer Recanelli had 4 receptions on 65 receiving yards, but they have an amazing connection. Logan Fife seems to be always looking in Keelan White's direction, and I noticed it during the Eastern Washington game. Keelan White kind of had his breakout game for this season with 7 receptions, 75 yards. Next game, he goes for 11 receptions and 163 receiving yards, his career high in receptions and yardage. And then this week, 5 receptions for 53 yards on a long of 14. But, they've been having a great connection. Another highlight from this game, the defense stepped up, but I felt like Ronald Jackson Jr. really showed up towards the end of the game. He made some big plays that were kind of sealed the game for Montana, some big tackles, and even a forced fumble that really helped seal the game for Montana. Another highlight, Alex McLaughlin is a dog. He had 9 tackles, 6 solo, 2 pass breakups, a forced fumble, and a sack. The sack also gets credited as a tackle for loss, but I suspect Alex McLaughlin is going to be first team all-conference this year at the safety position. I also suspect he's probably going to be on a couple of All-American lists. If he's not an FCS Stats All-American, he gets a ton of tackles. He gets a ton of pass breakups. He gets a ton of sacks. I mean, he affects the game in every way. Hopefully NAU is able to hold on to him next year, but he's one of the best players in the Big Sky Conference, and somebody was telling me that Montana tried to recruit him this past year, and they were unsuccessful in recruiting him. I heard that from a ton of media personalities this past weekend, and man, I wonder what it was that led. I know he's from, I think it's like the Phoenix area or Scottsdale. Can't remember. Somebody told he's from Arizona, so he's staying closer to home, going to Flagstaff. But I wonder what it was that led him to not end up at Montana. Maybe I can get him on the channel. I can ask him myself. You guys leave me a comment if you guys would like. Let me know if you guys would be interested in sitting down with Alex McLaughlin. I'd love to talk to him. He's a dog. I might just see if he'll come on anyway. But it was a good game to watch. Good victory for Montana to come down with. They beat Northern Arizona 31-20. You guys let me know what you thought about that game in the comments. Let me know what you guys thought about that game in the comments, and I will move on. Okay. Game of the week in the Big Sky, potentially game of the week in the country. In FCS football, it was a ranked matchup in the Big Sky Conference on national television, being played on ESPN2. A lot of people had talked about how this Montana State squad had not played any competition yet. They were 6-0. They beat a New Mexico team who is or is not really that good. And then they had played Mercyhurst. They played Maine. They played, I can't even remember who let me pull up their schedule right now. They had played Northern Colorado. They beat up on them. They had played Idaho State. They didn't beat up on them as much as I thought they would, but they played Maine, Utah Tech, Mercyhurst, New Mexico. New Mexico is really the only test that they had that's an FBS opponent. But outside of New Mexico, they hadn't really been tested this year. And this was supposed to be the first test for them. Now, we do know, everybody knows, if you've been tapped into this Idaho squad, they are beat up. They lost their starting quarterback, Jack Lane, to start the season. I think that has really hurt their offense this year. They've been playing Jack Wagner. He has not been playing the best. They were going to start Nick Josephet this week. I saw online that he ended up breaking his collarbone, and that is so devastating for Idaho because Jack Lane also broke his collarbone first game of the season against Oregon. So 2 quarterbacks, both walk-ons, with broken collarbones now for Idaho. Maybe Jack Lane is able to come back later in the season. I know that's not a season-ending injury all the time. It's like an 8-week recovery, but depends on how much strength he's able to get back. I don't suspect he'll come back this year, but he should be back next year better than ever. Hopefully he was able to get a medical redshirt this year. But it's been a struggle for Idaho offensively. We know their defense. We know what they can do. We know they can bring pressure onto the quarterback. We know they have a good D-line. But offensively, they have good weapons. Mark Hamper is a good receiver. Also, Jordan Dwyer is a good receiver. They weren't really able to get them the ball at a high level yesterday. Mark Hamper had 3 receptions for 42 yards. Jordan Dwyer had 2 for 14. But, there were some missed passes from Jack Wagner. And when I watched that UC Davis game, if you go watch my breakdown of that game, Jack Wagner had some terrible interceptions in that game, and that is one of the reasons why I think they really started to go away from him. A lot of people were pointing to, I guess he's had a shoulder injury that has really kept him on and off the field this year. But I really thought it was the decline in play. He never was playing at a super high level. You watch that ACU game, he completed about 50% of his passes. There was another game that I watched that, his completion percentage was around 50%, but they were able to get the dub. Their defense really helped them out. That ACU game, ranked matchup against ACU was really a big indicator for them. But outside of that, I don't think he has looked very, very strong. He can run the ball decently well. He had 5 rushes for 2 yards yesterday, but obviously we know sacks go into that because I do remember him having like a 10-yard run, maybe 15-yard run yesterday in that game. So he's got decent athleticism, but Montana State is just looking like the best team. For sure, they're the best team in the Big Sky Conference right now. They're looking like one of the top teams in the country. They're number 3 currently in the rankings. I think that honestly might be a little low. North Dakota State has looked okay. They almost lost to an East Tennessee State squad. I think they should have lost that East Tennessee State game. I did a breakdown on that game. Please go watch that. It was a struggle for them to get that victory. But winning teams win, losing teams lose. East Tennessee State found a way to lose that game. North Dakota State found a way to win that game. South Dakota State has looked good. I don't know really who they've played that's really tested them this year. I don't know who they've really been tested by this year, but obviously they're the back-to-back national champions, and they look really good. They just beat up on, I think they played Youngstown State yesterday. I can't remember exactly who they played yesterday, but they looked really good. They beat up on them. It was a beat down by South Dakota State, so good for them. Tommy Mellott, 11 for 15 passing the ball, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 11 carries, 140 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Tommy Mellott, we all know what he brings to the table. Scottrey Humphrey, 19 carries, 124 yards, no touchdowns, but really good rushing total right there. From the receiving end of things, they really spread the ball around. Taco Dowler, 2 receptions, 28 yards. Rohan Jones, 3 receptions, 28 yards. That's their tight end. Ty McCullough, 2 receptions, 28 yards. So all the receivers, their 3 top receivers, had the same receiving total. And then you had Lanyata Alexander, 1 reception, 23 yards. So really spreading the wealth around from that standpoint. But it was really a game that Montana State never trailed. They never were really in trouble in this game. It should have been a shutout. They were up 38-0 really late in the game. I think Idaho scored with like under a minute to go in the game. But I'm wondering when who's going to give Montana State their next test. I thought this Idaho game was really the game that was going to test Montana State. I thought this was the game, but I don't want to point to the injuries, but Idaho is beat up. Their quarterback being out. Quarterback is the most important position in football, college or professional. If you don't got a quarterback, you're not really anybody. And not saying that Jack Wagner's not a good player, but yesterday he completed less than 50% of his passes. So that's just not great when you're trying to beat a really, really good team. Montana State is 7-0. I think that's the first time they've been 7-0 since I saw 1978, since they've been 7-0. So they're looking to run the table this year, and I think they could do it. They have UC Davis coming up on their schedule. I believe they have Sac State coming up on their schedule. Yeah, so they have Portland State next week. They've already had their bye week, but I think they have another bye week. They do. They have another bye week after this Portland State game. They play Portland State in Portland. They then go to Eastern Washington and Cheney. They play Eastern Washington. Then they go. They have Sacramento State at home. That should maybe. I don't suspect that'll be a good game. They might get tested by Sac State. They might get tested by Eastern Washington. But, I think their next test is going to come on November 16th against UC Davis. That should be a really good game. UC Davis is undefeated against FCS currently right now. They lost to, can't remember exactly who UC Davis lost to, but that should be a good game. I think that game is going to be played in Davis, California. That game is going to be played in Davis, California. UC Davis's one loss came to Cal. So Montana versus UC Davis, that should be a really good game. And then they finish the season, obviously, with Montana at home. But Montana State looking like top team in the country. That's what I was going to say. I would really move Montana State to 1 or 2. North Dakota State has looked good, but when they got in trouble, they didn't look great against East Tennessee State. Obviously, they won, and that's all you can ask for as a team is if they win or lose, and they won. So props to them, and you can't blame them for how it looked. You can only credit them for the outcome. So you credit them with the victory because they got the victory. But I think Montana State is probably one of the one or two best teams in the country, and maybe that'll be reflected in the polls. Idaho was ranked 8, and Montana State absolutely demolished them. But North Dakota State just did the same thing to North Dakota, who was, I think, 7 or 8 last week too. So I don't know. I don't know if you can justify moving them up. I don't know. 3 is not bad. Obviously, 3 is certainly not a bad ranking, but I think they could potentially be higher. Yeah, you guys let me know what you thought about that Montana State-Idaho game. I was really looking forward to that game, and once it started getting going, it was a very boring game. It wasn't very exciting to watch. Idaho just could not get anything going offensively. Montana State's defense was flying around. They got a lot of good pieces on that defense. I do hear that Danny Uilakepa was in street clothes to finish the game, so I don't know what that is about. Somebody was reporting that he was getting consoled on the sidelines by some of his teammates. Hopefully that's nothing serious. I know he's a good leader for that team, and I know he missed a lot of last season with an injury, so hopefully he's able to stay healthy. But Tommy Mellott, great game. The defense played a great game. Almost got that shutout, but that defense is playing at a high level. Let's see what the point totals have been for this Montana State team. 7 for Idaho, 17 for Northern Colorado, 17 for Idaho State, 13 for Mercyhurst, 24 for Maine, and 7 for Utah Tech. The highest point total obviously coming from New Mexico with 31 in that first game, 2 of those being defensive touchdowns. But Montana State gets the dub against Idaho. You guys let me know in the comments what you thought about this game. Where do you think Montana State should be in the rankings? Should they stay at number 3? Should they go up? Should they go down? What do you think about this team going forward? Will they get tested this year? UC Davis will obviously be a good test for them. I think that Montana game, just because it's a rivalry game, will be a test for them. But they seem like the best team in the Big Sky Conference right now. They are the best team in the Big Sky Conference right now. You can't dispute that. They're 7-0. They're undefeated in conference. They're the best team in the Big Sky Conference right now. Who is going to be the team to beat them if they do get beat? We will see. You guys let me know in the comments, and I will move.
The Treasure State University of Montana football is a way of life. Lithia Ford has long been a proud sponsor of Grizz football, and Lithia Ford of Missoula is thrilled to have several of the best Montana football seniors driving the best trucks in Montana. Aspen Sound is the premier car audio and accessory shop in Montana. Aspen Sound makes sure the boys are riding in style with tinted windows and state-of-the-art stereo systems. There's always a party in Montana. Whether you're going to a concert, a wedding, or a football game, the Montana Party Bus will get you there. Skyline Sports and ESPN MT cover the Big Sky with more depth than anyone. Check out SkylineSportsMT.com and tune in to Nuanez Now on 1029 ESPN Missoula every day. My Montana Roots and Wear Your Roots clothing is your go-to spot for the most unique and comfortable lifestyle clothing you'll find anywhere. And get your custom t-shirts to support your favorite player. From 5 local businesses who love Montana, best of luck to the Grizz as they pursue another Big Sky Conference championship.
Okay. Weber State and Northern Colorado. I don't usually talk a ton about Northern Colorado. I don't talk about them a lot. I usually am talking about some of the more top games in the conference. This may have been one of the top games in the conference. Northern Colorado takes down Weber State to get their first victory in almost 2 years. Since November of 2022 is the last time they had a victory. Ed Lamb getting the troops together. I mean, a lot of people might contribute this to Grizz hangover. I mean, Weber State just won a great game, a ranked victory against Montana in Washington Grizzly Stadium. Not many teams go into Washington Grizzly Stadium and leave with a victory. So for Weber State to do that, I know they were feeling high and mighty, and this may be some hangover from that. They go to Greeley. No, did they have them at home? Yeah, this was in Ogden. Oh my goodness. Ogden, Utah. Northern Colorado goes into Ogden, beats the Weber State Wildcats, and walks out with their first victory in some time. I mean, I can't even believe this. And this does not look good for the Grizzlies. This does not look good for the Montana Grizzlies. You guys just lost to this team. They put up a ton of points against you. And then this week, they go out and lay an egg. Richie Munoz threw 6 touchdown passes against Montana's defense last week. And now they go against Northern Colorado. Richie Munoz completes 50% of his passes for 171 yards, a touchdown and an interception. Damon Bankston, 16 carries, 108 yards, no touchdowns. Richie Munoz had 9 carries for 59 yards and a touchdown. I mean, the receiver that looked like an all-American receiver last week with 150 receiving yards had 2 catches for 36 yards and a touchdown, Jacob Sharp. I mean, this is not good. This is not good. And I'm smiling, but it's just not good. It's not good for Montana. The quarterback of Northern Colorado, Keone, was 14 for 28, 118 yards, so he didn't even tear it up. But they did pretty good on the ground. They rushed for 205 yards. Weber State rushed for 230 yards. Let me look at the stat breakdown and see who really won in the stats. Weber State, more first downs. Third down efficiency 4 for 13. They were 2 for 2 on fourth down. UC Davis or Northern Colorado was 5 for 16 on third down, 2 for 3 on fourth down. Total yardage, Weber State won. Passing yards, Weber State won. Rushing yards, Weber State won. That one interception thrown, turnovers. Dang. Oh my gosh. I know why Weber State lost the game. They had 5 turnovers, 4 fumbles. Who were these fumbles caused by? Let's go find that out. So that one doesn't want to agree with us. So oh my goodness. Richie Munoz fumbled the ball 4 times, lost 3 of them. I don't even know who they were recovered by, but oh my gosh, that is not good. Weber State. Not good. 4 fumbles and an interception. You cannot win games that way. Let me tell you right now, you cannot win games that way. And that is 100% why what happened? I just genuinely want to know what happened. What happened to these guys? They look like one of the best teams in the Big Sky last week. They put it to, I'm trying to pull back up my stats on my iPad over here because for some reason it just closed down and just closed down everything. I don't know why. But I don't have the defensive stats. It's got to be some sack fumbles. I don't know how he fumbled 4 times. I mean, they had to have been getting to the quarterback at a high level because that's the only reason I would think that he would fumble that many times. But that is insane. Oh my gosh. 5 turnovers. You are not going to beat anybody that way, especially when they're not turning over the ball. So it really looks like Weber State kind of just handed them the victory. Statistically, they beat them in almost every statistic. They just turned over the ball at a high level. And Weber State's still technically third in the conference at 2-1. I guess Montana's 2-1, but they have the head-to-head victory over Montana. We'll see how Weber State turns out the rest of this season. But my goodness, what is going on in the Big Sky right now? Last week they beat Montana, and maybe it's some hangover, but and it's crazy that Richie Munoz was the one to have the 4 fumbles. 3 of them lost. 1 of them lost by Terrence Caldwell. Who is Terrence Caldwell? It says he's number 59. So would that have been is he a tight end? Would that have been, I don't know. I don't know how he fumbled. He lost a fumble too. They had 4 fumbles. They actually had 6 fumbles. 4 of them lost. Weber State, at home, this is bad. At home, you play like this. That is terrible. That is utterly terrible. And I know Weber State fans were on high after beating Montana. Weber State players were probably on high after beating Montana. Northern Colorado, they don't beat anybody. And that's not even to poo-poo on Northern Colorado. They just don't play well against anybody. They're not a strong team in the Big Sky Conference. They struggle a ton. They don't have a ton of I don't know if it's a recruiting issue. Me and Coulter Nuanez talk about this on the Big Sky Breakdown a lot, and I don't know enough about the history of the Big Sky to understand why Northern Colorado is never good. I know when I was a freshman, a redshirt freshman, not playing, Montana lost to Northern Colorado in Greeley when they still had the grass. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's very, very interesting. What do you guys think about this? Did you guys watch this game? Do you guys know why Northern Colorado? Do you guys know why Weber State fumbled so many times? Maybe I need to go back and watch the highlights and see what the nature of these fumbles were. But man, I just remember seeing the score, and I remember texting Coulter and being like, "Oh my gosh, Northern Colorado beat Weber State, and Weber State just beat Montana last week." Not good, gang. Not good, people. I mean, it's not good for Montana. It's good for Northern Colorado, and it's good for the Big Sky. If this means that the Big Sky is going to be more competitive going forward, that's good. But you do have one team who is head and shoulders above everybody else, and it seems like everybody else is just battling for second place right now. We will obviously see UC Davis and Montana State play this year. We'll see Montana and Montana State play this year, and we'll see Montana and UC Davis play this year. Those really seem like the top three teams to me right now. Idaho has kind of been a little separated below those. I don't know who would win if Idaho and Montana played, and that's another problem with the Big Sky Conference right now. Idaho and Montana need to be playing every year. Those are a rivalry game. You're playing for a trophy, and that trophy is just collecting dust for a year where it doesn't have to change hands 1 year. That's not right, and that isn't how it should be. Those teams should play every year. Idaho should be a protected rival for Montana. Montana State obviously has to be. That is a protected rival for Montana. But I don't even think Eastern Washington is a protected rival for Montana because Montana doesn't play Eastern Washington every year. They didn't play them last year. So I don't know what's going on in the Big Sky Conference. The best teams should play the best teams every year. One of those best teams being Montana State, Idaho, and Montana. They all need to play each other every year. UC Davis is also probably can put them up there. Sac State is probably up there. Seems like Montana plays Sac State every year. That might be one of their protected rivals. Who knows? But shake up in the Big Sky Conference after a big upset win for Weber State. I think Montana was like 2-score favorites against Weber State last week, and they end up getting the victory this week. They end up getting the L this week. They got the victory last week after being 2-point underdogs most likely, and now, I don't know. I don't know where Weber State goes from here. I don't know where Northern Colorado goes from here. Does this mean Northern Colorado's on the up and up? Is Northern Colorado gonna shock the nation? They're 1-2 right now. Is Northern Colorado gonna end up being last year's NAU? NAU was 5-3 in conference. Obviously they're 1-2 right now in conference, but we'll see. It's still early on in conference play. Only 3 conference games being played. Things are starting to shape up. Things are starting to shake out the way you expect them to shake out. But we will see. You guys let me know in the comments what you thought about this Northern Arizona or about this Northern Colorado and Weber State game. Are you shocked? Are you not that shocked? Obviously, the turnovers are a big stat. That's really the outlier that really led to them losing the game. You can't turn over the ball 5 times and win a game. You're never going to turn over the ball 5. If you do, show me. I think it maybe has happened once or twice in the history. That is a hard game to win, and it's especially hard if the other team is not giving up the ball. You guys let me know what you think about this. Make sure you comment down below what you thought about this game, and I will move on. Okay, the last game I am going to be reacting to in the Big Sky Conference is Eastern Washington and Sac State. Now, Eastern Washington has been on a losing streak of detrimental proportions. They won the first game of the season against Monmouth, and then it's just been a downslide since there. Lost to Drake, lost to Sela. 2 games they should have won. I think if you ask anybody, obviously they think they should win every game on their schedule. But if you ask any of the fans, Drake and Sela are 2 games they 100% should have won. Lost to Nevada. I think you expect them to lose that game. But I think going into the Montana date, a lot of people would have expected them to be 3-1 going up against Montana, who was also 3-1. That probably should have been a ranked matchup. Probably would have had a lot of eyes on it. But given that they were 1-3 going into that game instead of 3-1, but they ended up giving Montana everything they could handle, 52-49 game, and then they take that momentum that hopefully they collected from that game. They had a bye week in there, so they didn't play last week when Montana lost to Weber State. They play next against Sac State, and they get the victory against Sac State, 35-28. Both those teams moved to 2-4. Really good for Eastern Washington to get that victory. I'm not so sure where they stand in the standings now, as of now, but just really good for them to get that victory. They now sit at, I have it right here. They now sit at 1-1 in conference play because they've only played one conference game. So essentially, Eastern Washington could win the Big Sky if Montana State loses and they end up not losing any other games. If they end up running the table in the conference, they can make the playoffs. They can win the Big Sky. They play UC Davis next week, so that's a really important game for them. We're going to preview all the games going on next week in the Big Sky Conference, so I won't so much break that down, but we're talking about this game this week against Sac State. Let's first take a look at the stats of how everything broke down yesterday on that game. 28 first downs for Eastern Washington, 22 for Sac State, 7 for 12. They both were 7 for 12 on third down. Both were 2 for 2 on fourth down, so pretty even there. Yards-wise, total yards, Eastern Washington had 440. Sac State had 365. Passing, Sac State won in that statistic, 238 passing yards on 21 for 35 passing, 16 for 18 for Eastern Washington. Man, Kekoa Visperis is going to be efficient. 15 for 17, 141 yards, a touchdown. Kekoa Visperis, if he does nothing else, he is going to be efficient. You better believe it. Take it to the bank. That man is going to be efficient. He's a very efficient passer. Not always tearing up the stat sheet in terms of 200 and 300 passing yard games, but he's always going to be efficient. He's not going to put the ball in harm's way. He's not going to turn over the ball a ton. Let me actually look at how many times he's turned over the ball this year. I bet he has under 5 interceptions this year. He's got no interceptions this year. Kekoa Visperis has not thrown one interception all season long. I mean, he's a good player. He's a junior this year. 1,200 passing yards, 11 touchdowns. I think that hasn't been updated. It might be updated. But Kekoa Visperis is very, very, very efficient. And that's the thing. Like, Eastern Washington has a good offense. It's just their defense. Like, Montana put up 55 on them. 52 on them. And then, Drake put up 33 on them. Just some teams have been able to, I think Drake actually put up 35 on them. Drake put up 35 on them. Sela put up 28 on them. Nevada 49. Sacramento State even put up 28. Monmouth put up 27, and Monmouth has been looking really good offensively. They put up a ton of points the last couple of weeks. But, Eastern Washington gets the dub. Sac State, they haven't been looking good. After that NAU loss, that was a really bad loss for Sac State. They then went to Northern Arizona, lost. They had to bye, and now they lose to Eastern Washington. Their two other losses were San Jose State and Fresno State. I don't know where Sac State goes from here. They play Weber State. That could potentially be a good game next week. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to judge this Sac State team. You look at some of the statistics defensively. They look pretty good defensively. But, it's just a struggle for them right now. Conklin threw an interception yesterday. That was the one turnover. That might have been the one difference in the game. Rushing yards, Eastern Washington rushed for almost 300 rushing yards, 289 rushing yards. So when you're giving up 100 rushing yards to 98 rushing yards to Jared Taylor, who's the backup quarterback, that's not good. He had 2 touchdowns. And then you give up 102 rushing yards to Tuna Al-Tahir, their starting running back for Eastern Washington. That's not good, man. You can't give up almost 200 rushing yards to 2 runners and expect to win a game. That's going to put you behind the 8 ball always. That's why Montana State's such a hard team to play against. They also didn't attempt to run the ball at a high level. Sac State only attempted to rush the ball 29 times. Eastern Washington attempted to run the ball 53 times, which is a little different than you expect from an Eastern Washington team. When I think of Eastern Washington, I think of them airing the ball out. They only threw the ball 18 times. They rushed the ball 53 times. So really making a concerted effort to keep the ball on the ground, control the game from that standpoint. Time of possession, they were plus almost 6 minutes of time of possession. They had 32:59 in time of possession, and Sac State had 27:01 time of possession. So Sac State's looking for a fix right now. Eastern Washington's 1-1 in conference. Sac State is 0-2 in conference. They are actually at the bottom of the conference standings right now, being 0-2. Northern Arizona is above them. Northern Colorado is above them. Cal Poly is above them. Idaho State, Portland State are all above them. Portland State got a really big victory yesterday too. That was a little disappointing from a different standpoint. I had Idaho State in a parlay that would have cashed for like $350. I just need Idaho State to win. Every other leg in the parlay hit. I just needed Idaho State to win, and they lost. Portland State got their first victory of the season. Northern Colorado got their first victory of the season yesterday. It was a good day for some of the bottom tier teams in the Big Sky Conference. Big day for those guys. I wish Idaho State would have stepped up, but they didn't. Either way, we're talking about Eastern Washington, Sac State. What did you guys think about this game? Did any of you guys actually watch this game? What were your thoughts walking away from that game? Do you think Eastern Washington could potentially shake things up? Or is this just, Sac State not being very good this year? You guys let me know in the comments, and I will move on. Okay, I want to talk about my top Big Sky performances of Week 7. I do want to apologize. I didn't have enough time to go through some of the defensive statistics from this weekend, so I know there were probably some really big defensive games. I only have offensive games on here right now. The only reason for that is because on ESPN, they don't put defensive statistics. So for a lot of the FBS games, you can find defensive statistics on ESPN when you look at the box scores, but you have to go to each individual school website to find the defensive statistics for these schools, and I didn't take the time to do that this week. I apologize ahead of time. I'm not being lazy, but I do have a lot going on some of these Sundays, trying to get ready for my Under the Helmet show. I want to get these videos recorded and done, so I didn't put the defensive statistics on there. Please don't kill me for it. Apologies. But I got some of the top offensive games in the Big Sky Conference from Week 7, and I'm going to go over them for you. These aren't numbered. The first one on the list is Tommy Mellott from Montana State. They beat up on Idaho this past weekend, 38-7. Ranked matchup, the first test of the season for them. I know a lot of people were like, oh, Montana State hasn't played anybody. Well, they played somebody, and they beat up on them. They looked really good. They look really good. They're undefeated. They have 0 losses on the season. And Tommy Mellott is a big reason for that. They've been running him less. I think yesterday was probably the most they've run him all season. And honestly, I thought they kept him in the game a little too long. I would have taken him out before they did. They left him in, to start late in the third quarter and to start the fourth quarter, and they were still running him. And I was thinking, man, get this guy out of the game. He has been hurt throughout his career, and you're playing really good right now. Tommy Mellott is a big reason for that. This guy is a difference maker. He's a great leader. Guys want to play hard for him, and you can see that. Keep him healthy, get him out of the game. He had a good game yesterday. 11 for 15, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns passing. 11 carries, 140 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. 4 total touchdowns on the day. 11 carries, 140 rushing yards is really good. That's a really good rushing output for Tommy Mellott. He had a great game. Really good to see. At number 2 on this list, you got Dante Chachere from Portland State. He had an amazing day on the ground. 12 for 26 passing the ball, 216 yards, 3 touchdowns, 13 carries, 202 yards, 3 touchdowns. Let me go look real quick at the statistics. Portland State put up 7 touchdowns. 6 of them were Dante Chachere. I mean, you can see on the GameCast right now, Chachere accounts for more than 400 yards and 6 touchdowns on Portland State's 42-38 win over Idaho State. I mean, Dante was their whole game yesterday. Dante Chachere was their whole team yesterday. I mean, not great efficiency passing the ball, but 3 passing touchdowns? I mean, come on, bro. Leading the team in rushing. They rushed for 300 yards yesterday on Idaho State. Not good look from Idaho State. Christian Fredrickson did have 100 yards for Idaho State. That's good. But, man, 200 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns from your quarterback? What? Wow. What a game. Had to put him on there. I saw that, and I was like, oh, my goodness. What is that per carry? They don't have the averages on ESPN. They don't. Well, I think they will have the averages if I go over here. He averaged 15 yards a carry on the ground. That's amazing. That is amazing. Great game, Dante Chachere. At number 2, or the third person on this list, is Eric Denham of Portland State. 5 receptions, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. Good receiving output. I love to see a good receiver game. That man showed up and showed out in a game when they needed it. They got the first victory of the season against Idaho State. Good job, Portland State. It's been a struggle for Portland State this year. They've had a gauntlet of a schedule, and they got their first victory of the season. They obviously missed that one game against South Dakota with whooping cough. I think they would have got beat up in that game too. So honestly, helping them out, helping them stay healthy, helping them stay safe. But they get their first victory of the season. Congrats to Portland State, and they had some good statistical games from some of their guys to go with it. At number 4 on this list, I have Miles Hastings of UC Davis, 27 for 30 passing. That is 90% completion percentage. 27 for 30 passing is absolutely insane. They played against Cal Poly, obviously. Cal Poly's not a great team. Cal Poly's 2-4 right now. But Miles Hastings, 27 of 30, 458 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, what? Wow. I think Miles Hastings is going to be Big Sky Player of the Week. With that output, 27 of 30, Big Sky Offensive Player of the Week, 27 of 30, 458 yards, 4 touchdowns. That is insane. Now, if you want to give it to Dante Chachere, I would not be mad about that. They got the first victory of the season. He had 6 touchdowns. What do you value more, Big Sky Conference? Do you value passing yards, or do you value passing yards efficiency and touchdowns, or do you value just straight touchdown output? 6 touchdowns by Dante Chachere is absolutely insane. 3 passing, 3 rushing. I would not be mad at either of them got it, but Miles Hastings had a really good game. That is going to be a good test for Montana State. Good test defensively, good test offensively. I mean, we'll see. That is another game. That is the next game that I have pinpointed on my schedule. It was Montana State, Idaho. Montana State handled that test. They made it a very boring game. Next, I'm looking at that UC Davis, Montana State date. That's going to be a good game. Last on the list, we have Land Larison, UC Davis, the do-it-all running back for UC Davis. He had 13 carries, 76 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 5 receptions, 90 yards, 1 touchdown. He does it all. They use him all over the place. Sometimes they even have him throw the ball. He threw the ball yesterday, 1 for 2 with 3 yards, and he actually had an interception. So not good from that standpoint from Land Larison. But overall, he had a good game. 3 touchdowns, 3 total touchdowns, 166 total yards accounted for offensively. So good output from him. He affects the game all over the place, having about, 18 touches, close to 20 touches of the football. He had a good game. Great game from Land Larison. You guys let me know what you think about some of these outputs. If you guys know some of the good defensive outputs, leave them in the comments. Let me know who had a good defensive game yesterday. I'm very interested to know. I'll obviously be going back and looking at them, but they won't make it in the video, unfortunately. But you guys let me know what you guys thought about that, and I will move on. Okay, I got some bold Big Sky predictions after week 7. So these are predictions that I think will take place in the Big Sky Conference following week 7. It's been a wild Big Sky Conference. It's been a wild Big Sky season. It's been a wild football season. Some teams have lost. Some teams have won that you might not suspect on either side of that. But it's been a good season, and I have some predictions for you. My first bold prediction after week 7 is Montana and Montana State will play for the Big Sky title in week 13. I don't think that's a super bold prediction. That might be a little bit bold because of how UC Davis is looking. But I think if Montana does what they're supposed to do in Big Sky Conference play, that one question being UC Davis, can they beat UC Davis? But outside of that, so that might be bold because Montana so far has not looked like they so much are capable of beating UC Davis yet this year. If they are able to do that, I think them and Montana State will play for the Big Sky title in week 13. Obviously, it'll be Montana's job to beat Montana State, but I think they would get the tiebreaker. I don't know how that works. If they're all 7-1, does everybody get a trophy? I don't know. We will see. But I think Montana State and Montana, just like last year, will play for the Big Sky title in week 13. That's not so bold. Next bold prediction for after week 7. The Big Sky will only, emphasis on only, have 3 playoff teams this year. That means I think Idaho will continue to slide this year, unfortunately. That means I'm really going to tell you, I think it's only going to be UC Davis, Montana, and Montana State who are going to make the playoffs this year. I don't think they get any other playoff teams any other teams in the playoffs, although they had 7 ranked teams this last week, which is outstanding, having 7 of the 12 teams, more than 50% of your conference being ranked in the top 25. That's amazing. I don't think they have more than 3 playoff teams this year. I don't think there's more than 3 worthy playoff teams in the conference. I think Montana is worthy. They seem to be fringe worthy right now. They need to show a little bit more, but I think they can be a playoff team. Montana State is for sure a playoff team, and then obviously UC Davis looks like a playoff team as well. But I think the Big Sky Conference will only have 3 playoff teams this year. Only. Next bold prediction. If MSU wins the Brawl of the Wild and is undefeated, they will win the national championship. Yes. That's probably very bold for some of my Montana fans out there. Obviously, I'm an alum. Obviously, I heard from it I go to this tailgate of good friends of mine every week, and obviously I cover the Big Sky Conference, but obviously I live in Missoula, so I go to all the Montana games, and I cover the Montana games. I don't travel with the team. I do the pregame, postgame show, which is geared towards the Grizz. So, a little bit of everything in there. But I was at the tailgate this week, and I was talking with some of my friends who obviously are Grizz fans. I'm obviously Skyline Sports, so I'm objectively covering the Big Sky this year, and they weren't happy about some of the comments I made on the Big Sky breakdown last week. I did say that I think if anybody was going to win the national championship for the Big Sky in recent years since 2010, if anybody was going to do it, if there was ever a year to do it, it's got to be Montana State, and it's got to be this year. And obviously, they only want to see Montana win it. They definitely don't want to see Montana State win it, but they only want to see Montana or nobody in the Big Sky win it, and they definitely don't want to see Montana State win it. So for me to say that, being an alum, being a great friend of theirs, they weren't very happy with me. And I want to tell you guys, I told you guys this on Saturday. I'm sorry, but I got to tell it. I got to call it how I see it. They're undefeated. They just beat a ranked number 8 Idaho. They just beat up on them. They've looked really good this year. They look good defensively. They look good offensively. They look like one of the better teams in the Big Sky. They look like they look like a top 3 team in the country. Like, they look like the best team in the Big Sky Conference, and they look like almost the best team in the country. Now, obviously, South Dakota State will have some things to say about that. North Dakota State will have some things to say about that. We'll see how the playoffs work out. I know Colter Nuanez is always telling me that Bobcats always find a way to mess things up. He said they Bobcat it. I don't know what the technical term is, but I guess in history, Montana State has been this good in the past, or close to as good as they are this year in the past, and they've always found a way to mess things up. I haven't seen that. I am not privy to that, but hopefully it's different for them this year. And I think, based on what I've seen from them, I think they have a chance to win the Big Sky Conference and also win the national championship. And if there was ever a time, I root for the Big Sky Conference. Obviously, I'm a Grizz alum, Montana alum, but I'm rooting for the Big Sky Conference to do well. And if there was ever a year that somebody outside of the Missouri Valley was going to win a national championship, it's this year. Obviously, Sam Houston State snuck in and got one in COVID. Everybody didn't play, but they were the best team that year. They did come out victorious against a good South Dakota State team. Mark Gradowski got hurt. We don't have to talk about that. If there was ever a year for the Big Sky to stake their flag as a worthy opponent for anybody who wants to challenge them, it's this year. It's got to be this year. We don't know what the future of the FCS is. We don't know what the future of some of these teams in the FCS is. The FCS is getting weaker and weaker every year. And if Montana and Montana State stay after maybe a North Dakota State and South Dakota State leave, is there an asterisk next to that national championship? I don't know. But you want to win it against the Dakota schools. You want to win it when it's still got some of the blue bloods that have been holding up the subdivision for some years. You want to win it against them. You want to do it against worthy opponents. It's like a receiver. I say receiver because I played receiver. It's like a receiver having his best game of his career against the best defense in the country, but the best defensive back isn't there. It's like, do you really count it? Or it's like just like Montana beating Northern Arizona. Everybody's like, oh, Montana's defense looked really good against Northern Arizona, but they were playing against a third-string quarterback. You should look good against that offense. But still, they looked good. They only gave up 13 points. There's things that you can gather from it in a good way, but there's also things where it's like, hold on now. Either way, I think Montana State is looking really good this year. I think they should do some good things in the playoffs. Hopefully they can get to the national championship, and hopefully they can win it. We'll see. They still have a lot of season to go. They still have a lot of big tests to face this year, but they look really good. They're looking pretty healthy. They just lost one of their linebackers yesterday, so hopefully he's able to come back this year. But, yeah, you guys let me know what you think about – oh, wait. I'm not even done. That was my bold prediction, my third bold prediction. I have one more bold prediction. Eastern Washington will upset Montana State, Idaho, or UC Davis. I say most likely Davis, but I think Eastern Washington will get an upset in there. Given how they played Montana, they almost upset Montana, but I think Eastern Washington will upset either Montana State, Idaho, or UC Davis sometime this season. It's going to be one of them. Eastern Washington, do they play Idaho? I believe they play Idaho. I don't think I would have put them on here if they didn't play Idaho. They do play Idaho. So they play Idaho in a couple of weeks. But I think they're going to upset one of them. Obviously, based off what I just said about Montana State, I don't so much foresee it being Montana State, but it could be. It 100% could be. They could upset Montana State. They play Montana State in Cheney. So we'll see. We will see. But that is my 4 bold predictions. Montana and Montana State will play for the Big Sky title in week 13. Not so bold. The Big Sky will only have 3 playoff teams this year. If MSU, I don't think that might be super bold either. I'm not great at making bold predictions. I'm not like a headline guy. I'm not trying to, I don't know. It's not my greatest talent in this media business. If MSU wins the Brawl of the Wild and is undefeated, they will win the national championship. That is bold. That is bold. And then Eastern Washington will upset MSU, Idaho, or UC Davis. I say that's like 5-6 level boldness of bold take. But you guys let me know what you think about my bold Big Sky predictions after week 7. Would you add another bold take in there? Do you think I'm totally off base with these bold takes? What do you guys think? You guys let me know in the comments, and I will move on.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town Pump. Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Okay. We didn't get a week 6 Big Sky poll. I was out of town. I didn't shoot a video last week, but I'm coming at you with a week 7 Big Sky poll. A Big Sky poll after week 7. We've watched the games from Saturday. This is my week 7 Big Sky poll. Yeah, this is my poll right now. This is my poll. I don't know, man. I'm looking at it now and I'm like, ooh. Okay, at 1, obviously we have Montana State. At 2, obviously we have UC Davis. At 3, we have Idaho. At 4, we have Montana. At 5, we have Northern Arizona. At 6, I got Weber State. At 7, I have Eastern Washington. At 8, I have Sacramento State. At 9, I have Portland State. At 10, I have Idaho State. At 11, switch up at 11 and 12. Who would have thought? Northern Colorado moving up in the ranks. Northern Colorado trying to get up in the Big Sky rankings after getting a big victory against Weber State. And then at 12, we got Cal Poly. Unfortunately, Cal Poly's at the bottom. Really, it should be Sacramento State should be at the bottom. They're 0-2 in conference. But based off what I've seen, I still think Sacramento State is better than Idaho. I still think they're better than Portland State. I still think they're better than Northern Colorado. And I still think they're better than Cal Poly. Obviously, we will see as things shake out. But I really think the shakeup is at 3 and 4. Montana at 4, Idaho at 3. Honestly, after rethinking this, I really could have switched Montana and Idaho. Idaho did not look good. They didn't look good. They just lost another quarterback. Offensively, I keep saying it, and I feel bad that I have to keep saying it. They don't look good offensively. I don't think very highly of Idaho's offense right now. They aren't able to put up points. They struggle from all facets offensively, and it's just a struggle for them. Defensively, they're pretty good. They gave up 38 to Montana, a good Montana State team. But yeah, I mean, 1 Montana State, 2 UC Davis, 3 Idaho, 4 Montana, 5 Northern Arizona. I think really the only questions people could have is at 3 and 4 with Idaho and Montana. Outside of that, it's really set. Northern Arizona is better than everybody below them, but they're not the best. They lost to Idaho, so they're below Idaho. They lost to Montana, they're below Montana, but I think they're better than Weber State, Eastern Washington, Sac State, Portland State, Idaho, Northern Colorado, and Cal Poly. But what do you guys think about my Big Sky poll rankings? I'll say it one more time. Montana State, UC Davis, 3 Idaho, 4 Montana, 5 Northern Arizona, 6 Weber State, 7 Eastern Washington, 8 Sacramento State, 9 Portland State, 10 Idaho State, 11 Northern Colorado, and 12 Cal Poly. You guys let me know what you think about those in the bottom. Let me know what you think about that in the comments, and I will move on. Okay. Last but certainly not least, we are going to give my Big Sky Week 7 preview. We are previewing all the top games in the Big Sky Conference from Week 7. And, we're going to go down them. We got a couple of bye weeks this week. If I'm looking correctly, UC Davis and UC Davis and Portland State, UC Davis and Cal Poly. I don't know. UC Davis. No, UC Davis doesn't even have a bye. I don't know who has a bye this week. Let me see. Who played last week? Northern Colorado. I don't know. Somebody has a bye. Northern Colorado is one of those teams with a bye this week. And Montana. Duh. Am I dumb? Northern Colorado and Montana have a bye this week, obviously, because they play next week. Yeah. Either way. Yeah, so we're going to break down some of the top games in the Big Sky Conference this week. Not any of the top games. We're going to break down every game going on in the Big Sky Conference this week, starting with Cal Poly at Idaho being played at 2 p.m. on ESPN+. I suspect that's a game for Idaho to get back on track. They've lost 2 of their last 3 games. Those games coming at, obviously, the game coming at UC Davis. They lost to UC Davis. They beat Arizona in a tight matchup, but they played 4 ranked matchups in a row. Idaho's had a pretty decent schedule. 5. Technically 5. Albany was ranked. Idaho played them, beat them 41-13. Abilene Christian was ranked. Idaho played them, beat them by 3. UC Davis was ranked. Idaho played them, lost by 2. Northern Arizona was ranked. Idaho played them, beat them by 6. And then Montana State is obviously the 3rd ranked team in the country. Idaho played them, lost by 31. So Idaho's had a pretty tough schedule. They should get a pretty easy one next week against Cal Poly. Anything could happen, though. Weber State beat Montana, then they go and lose to Northern Colorado. Nobody thought Northern Colorado would beat Weber State, but they did. So anything could happen in any given Saturday in college football. So Idaho will play at Cal Poly next week. That should be a pretty decent game. You can go watch that game if you want. That probably won't be a game that I have my eyes on. But 4-3, Idaho takes on 2-4 Cal Poly at 2 p.m. in the Kibbe Dome. They're back at home, playing in the Kibbe Dome. We'll see what they can do. Next, you have Idaho State at Northern Arizona. I suspect Northern Arizona will win that game. Both teams are 3-4. You got a 3-4 Northern Arizona taking on a 3-4 Idaho State. That game is going to be played at 2 p.m. in Flagstaff, Arizona. I suspect Northern Arizona will win that game. I would pick Northern Arizona to maybe win that game by like a score or 2. I just say that because their offense isn't great. Their defense is really good. Idaho State has a lot of offense, so it's good against good defense against good offense. We will see. But 3-4 versus 3-4, Idaho State versus Northern Arizona. I don't know what to expect from that game. I mean, I expect a Northern Arizona victory, but I don't really have much to say about that game. We will see if Ty Pennington is back in that game for Northern Arizona. But, Northern Arizona should win that game pretty handily. They shouldn't have too many problems with that game. Next, you have Montana State at Portland State. They go to Portland to play Portland State at 2 p.m. So 3 games starting at 2 p.m. in the Big Sky Conference next week. Usually, most games in the Big Sky Conference don't start before 1 or 2, unless you look at the Brawl of the Wild, which starts pretty early in the day. But outside of that one, like most games start in the mid-afternoon. There's not a lot of morning games in the Big Sky Conference, which is interesting. But Montana State goes to Portland State. They should win that game by a boatload. They should boat race them. I don't suspect that Tommy Mellott and most of their starters will play in the second half. That's something that's been kind of hurting this Montana State team this year, is that they've been beating up on people so much. Their starters haven't been playing a majority of the second halves, and teams have been able to put some points up on them. I suspect the same thing will happen against Portland State. Portland State obviously got their first victory last week against Idaho State, yesterday against Idaho State, but I don't foresee that happening against Montana State. It's possible that Montana State could bump their head, but I suspect they'll win by 3, 4, maybe 5 touchdowns against this Portland State team. 7-0 Montana State takes on 1-5 Portland State at 2 p.m. on ESPN Plus in Portland, Oregon. Go check that out if you want. Not a great game. Shouldn't be a great game. There's not a great games going on not a lot of great games going on in the Big Sky Conference this next week in Week 8. Next, we have UC Davis 6-1 taking on Eastern Washington at 2-4. They will play that game in Cheney at 5 p.m. on ESPN Plus. I suspect UC Davis to win that game, but like I just mentioned, Eastern Washington, my bold predictions, Eastern Washington will upset UC Davis, Idaho, or Montana State. Could it be UC Davis? Idaho or Eastern Washington has a ton of offense. They got weapons. Their quarterback is very efficient. They run the ball at a high level. They're good on offense. Defensively is where they struggle, and UC Davis has a ton of offense, so it's really bad on bad. Good offense on a bad defense, and a good offense on. I think UC Davis' defense is good though. Their defense is good. They held Idaho State to some pretty low totals. They were able to hold. Every team they played has not put up a ton of points on them. They've looked really good. UC Davis is obviously undefeated against the FCS. Idaho put up 26 on them. Utah Tech put up 14. Southern Utah put up 21. It's pretty interesting where we are with UC Davis because I didn't really think highly of UC Davis. I honestly, if you guys remember my poll a couple of weeks ago, I had ranked Sac State ahead of UC Davis in my rankings based on what I had seen from either team. And now UC Davis is the second best team in the Big Sky Conference, and they've been that way since they beat Idaho. But they play Eastern Washington. I think that's probably the best game that's going to be happening in the Big Sky Conference. It could end up being a blowout. UC Davis could blow Eastern Washington out. But if there's any game to keep your eyes on, it's UC Davis at Eastern Washington, and the next one I'm going to talk about, which is Weber State at Sacramento State. But UC Davis takes on 6-1. UC Davis takes on 2-4 Eastern Washington at 5 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Go tap into that game. It'll be played in Cheney, Washington. Last but certainly not least, we have Weber State taking on Sacramento State in Sacramento, California. There's been a whole lot going on with Sacramento State lately. They've been raising a ton of money. They raised a ton of NIL money. They're looking to go up, hopefully, to the Pac-12, maybe to the Mountain West. I think their goal is the Pac-12. They're trying to go up and get in that upper echelon of football. They're talking about making renovations to their stadium. They are obviously an outwardly speaking about making a move. They want to make a move. They want everybody to know that they want to make a move, and they're trying to make themselves the most attractive candidate for any recruits potentially looking to come there. They're trying to get a ton of NIL money so they can pay the players. They're making the moves, but they take on Weber State next week. They're still in the Big Sky right now. They're still in the FCS right now. So they have Weber State next week. Weber State, I don't know. I think this could honestly be the game of the week in the Big Sky Conference. Weber State at Sacramento State. UC Davis, I think, could really blow Eastern Washington out. That's why I say Weber State. And the only reason I say Weber State, Sacramento State, because I think that could be like a close game. And if you don't want to see a blowout, Northern Arizona, Idaho State could be a blowout. That could be a decent game. Montana State, Portland State will be a blowout. Idaho at Cal Poly will most likely be a blowout. But Weber State, Sacramento State, they could stay close to each other. 2-4 Sacramento State taking on a 3-4 Weber State in Sacramento, California at 7 p.m. Big Sky After Dark on ESPN Plus. Under the lights at Sacramento. I think that could be a pretty decent game. Richie Munoz is obviously going to want to bounce back from a terrible game he played against Northern Colorado. Ton of turnovers. He had 4 turnovers, I think. Can't remember if it was 5 or 4. I'd have to go back earlier in the video, but terrible game from Richie Munoz. Right after having 6 touchdown passes against Montana, he goes and lays an egg against Northern Colorado and completely just falls apart at home. So Weber State will be looking to bounce back against Sacramento State. Sacramento State will also be looking to bounce back against Weber State. Sacramento State just lost against Eastern, and then Weber State obviously just lost against Northern Colorado. So you guys let me know what you guys think about all of these games going on in the Big Sky Conference this week. What game are you going to be keeping your eyes locked in on? What game are you excited to watch? Is there any game you're excited to watch? Are you really asleep for the Big Sky slate this week? Can get watching a lot of FBS football this week. You guys let me know, and I will move on. Okay. That is going to conclude my video for this week. I want to thank you guys so much for tapping in. I appreciate you guys so much. Make sure you guys go check out Under the Helmet. It'll be dropping on my channel each week around Wednesday or Thursday. I think we're going to do a Thursday drop for that video each week, but make sure you guys keep a lookout on Under the Helmet. If you guys are in the Missoula area, come check us out at the press box from 5 to 7 p.m. each week. I appreciate you guys so much for tapping in. Thank you guys so much for giving me love. Thank you guys so much for watching my videos each week. I'll be dropping my Tuesday videos every week. I'll be dropping some breakdowns each week. We got North Dakota State versus South Dakota State. I'm going to break that game down. Hopefully it's not a blowout. I try not to break down blowouts because they're going to be pretty boring. I want to break down games that are back and forth. There's a lot of, headsy things going on. There's a lot of back and forth with the coaches. There's a lot of plays happening. Those are the games I want to break down. Hopefully there's a good one that we can break down this weekend because I don't foresee there being a ton of good Big Sky games to break down this week. I wanted to break down that Montana State versus Idaho game, but it ended up being a blowout, so I didn't do it. But make sure you guys check out Under the Helmet. All that audio will be posted on Skyline Sports. You guys can go to Skyline Sports and check all of that out. All of my videos also get embedded on Skyline Sports. All of my audio from this video will be on Skyline Sports as well. So I thank you guys for tapping in. Thank you guys for showing me love. Thank you guys for supporting me, and I will catch you guys next week. Thank you so much. See ya later.